G'day, it's Tony Burke, the Environment Minister. I'm here today with Kane Moyle, the Acting Executive Director of RecFishWest, which is the recreational fishing organisation here in Western Australia. Today, I've just been involved in releasing the South-west draft plans for bioregional planning. This is a network of marine reserves, marine national parks to take place across the southwest areas of Australia. We've just put it online, we've just released it. The rec fishing organisations, the commercial organisations and the environment organisations have just been taken through the detail. And so, Kane, I wanted to have a chance just to chat with you and work through it. If we start before today, there was a level of fear about 12 months ago, I guess, among a lot of rec fishers as to where this process was likely to lead. Can you take us back a few months with the concerns that people had?
Yeah, well, following the election, certainly there was some concern and uncertainty about what this process may mean for recreational fishers. RecFishWest, as the peak body in WA, has got quite actively engaged in communicating with your office and your department about this process. What we've been wanting to achieve is make sure that those recreational values have been fed into the planning process before the announcement of what we've got today, which is now a draft plan for the public to have their consultation period.
Okay, and if I can stress that point that you've made there, because it's important that everyone knows this bit as well. What's out today is up for 90 days of consultation. So between now and the 8th of August, there's every opportunity for people to be able to reflect, look at the maps, provide their feedback on what they think of it. Now, with the maps, there's 3 different sorts of zones. Now, I think it's fair to say that a few months ago, a lot of people would have thought that those areas for a further assessment were all going to be lockout zones. Was that view going around?
There was certainly an uncertainty about what those areas for further assessment may mean. Were they the boundaries for a marine park or a marine reserve, or were they going to be areas up for further negotiation and comment? Now, what we've been pushing all along is that we believed a number of the recreational fishing values that were within those areas for further assessment did not conflict or impact on what were the recognised conservation values. Now, we have a draft plan that we can start going to the public and speaking with rec fishers to refine some of that information. But I suppose what we've been trying to make sure is that the recreational values were picked up and conservation values at the same time were protected through this network.
Okay, in a moment I want to take you through the maps. The maps, we've got 3 different colours. Where the colour's green, they're the marine national parks. Now, those areas are areas where rec fishing won't be able to take place. The 2 other sorts of areas, we've got the light blue colours, that's the multiple use zones. And in those areas, it's your larger commercial fishing activities that involve demersal trawl, demersal gillnet, demersal longline. They're not allowed there, but recreational fishing is not going to be something that's involved in those sorts of methods. So
within those multiple use zones, will it still result in recreational fishing as the status quo within state-based regulations, or will there be some different set of arrangements or rules in that area?
Yeah, look, the easiest way to deal with that, Kane, is if you go to the documents that we've got, and we've got the table that goes through your multiple use zones, your special purpose zones and your national parks. And when you go through that, the first one listed, recreational fishing, multiple use zone, it's allowed. Special purpose zone, it's allowed. Marine national park, it's not. And then there's different restrictions for commercial fishing depending on what sort of gear they're using. So can we go through area by area and I'll take you through that?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay. So we won't do the South Australian parts of today because that's not you. But if we start up in the northernmost area, if we start with the Abrolhos, now up there we've got around the Abrolhos Islands, we've got a small area. Now there's already a state park there, is that right?
Yeah, the Abrolhos Islands is managed under the State Fisheries Department as a fish habitat protection area.
Okay, so is rec fishing allowed there at the moment?
Rec fishing is allowed within all that area. There are some small marine sanctuaries contained within that part of the Abrolhos Islands.
Okay, so the Commonwealth waters that start there, the first bit's dark blue, so for all of that rec fishing's allowed. The light blue areas that follow around for the Abrolhos, rec fishing's allowed there. There's a green section there, that part would be national park.
Yep.
Under these plans. How much of a hit does rec fishing take by that bit being carved out?
having a look at that area, it's a long way from any sort of recreational access point, and that's what we've stressed all the way along, is avoiding high value, high access recreational fishing areas. The Abrolhos Islands is very important, and the area surrounding that and the shelf habitat for the rec sector. Looking at that green area out in quite deep water, I would say the impact on rec fishing there would be zero.
Okay. If we then go to Jurien, now for Jurien here, now it says Jurien Bay Marine Park. Now that's in state waters, that part. So is rec fishing allowed there at the moment in the state waters?
There's an existing marine park that has its own zoning scheme with an array of protection from sanctuary zones right through to multi-use within that area. So there's quite a complex marine planning network within that area already.
So there's some areas in there in state waters where rec fishing's allowed, some areas where it's not? Is that the deal?
Yes.
Okay. We're then extending a new area where the dark blue is, but that would apply to commercials only, so no change on Jurien for rec fishers.
Yep.
Fairly popular place for rec fishing?
Very popular holiday spot. People heading up along that coast away from Perth on weekends and also during school holiday periods. So again, an important recreational tourist access point. So the fact that recreational fishing will not be impacted in terms of that marine reserve is a positive outcome for recreational fishers.
What do you catch up there?
A lot of demersal fishing up there, so West Australian dewfish, which is
iconic,
highly prized West
the
Australian
jury
species, pink snapper, but also off Jurien there's some great recreational sports fishing for pelagic species.
Okay.
You get some of the marlin and mackerel and tuna species that certainly migrate past there.
Okay, next one. Now in environmental terms, quite iconic here, the concept of the Perth Canyon. This is the one, a canyon bigger than the Grand Canyon, or around that size. One of the places where the blue whale goes to feed. Now here there's some limitations put on any of the commercial activities that go along the ocean floor. No limitations here for rec fishing. How important is that outcome for you? Because under areas for further assessment, I know you were raising this one a lot.
It's certainly quite a unique marine feature, but it's also unique in the recreational fishing opportunities that area provides. It's off the major metropolitan centre being Perth along the west coast, and it's one of the few places where a number of these pelagic species that are more tropical in their range extend down to temperate waters. It's a very popular game fishing destination for species like marlin and tuna, and also some important Samson fish aggregations, which is an important recreational sports fish in that area. And
is that across the whole of the canyon, or are there particular, I'm sure there's particular spots that are the places to go for?
Yeah, it's more focused around the eastern rim of the canyon, within 40 to 50 kilometres from the coast, and access points that recreational vessels tend to venture out. Once you get off the more deeper shelf habitat, there isn't as much rec activity out there. Okay.
We now go to South-west Corner. Now here once again, the light blue and the dark blue areas aren't an impact on rec fishing. And I think there is a significant amount of rec fishing that currently goes on in that light blue and dark blue areas. For the green areas that are here, the area that's actually Marine National Park, what's the impact there on recreational fishing? Because this will be one of the largest marine national parks in the world. It's a very big, lot of acreage there, big parcel of water. What's the impact on rec fishing with the way this map's been designed?
Yeah, looking at the map, certainly it's a big area, and at first glance difficult to digest and take in, but looking at where that's mostly located, it's outside of the shelf habitat, which is most important for rec fishers and access. Outside of that area, I would say that there's very little recreational fishing that occurs. There are some areas that have extended up onto the shelf there, and we'll be obviously speaking with local recreational fishers in those areas to see what impact that may have on recreational fishing activity around there. But the larger extent of that green area has very little impact on existing recreational fishing activities in that area.
Okay, so because some people I think would look at this and would think the exact opposite of what you've just said. They'll look at the big bits of green and think that's where the problem is. Look at the smaller corridors leading into the boundaries of Commonwealth and state waters and think that's not as much of a concern for rec fishers, but that's actually where your concern will be
That's
greater.
where most of the rec fishing activity occurs, but when you look at where the reserve does extend up onto the shelf, they are away from a number of those major recreational access points, being Albany, Augusta and Bustleton and Geograph Bay. But within some of those areas there still is some intersectoral resource sharing negotiations and discussions that are occurring between the recreational and commercial fisheries that we need to look at existing management tools that can resolve some of those issues there, that we'll be focusing now that we've got some certainty around these Commonwealth marine boundaries. Okay,
now the last area that's within your WA boundaries before we hit South Australia is the proposed Eastern Research Commonwealth Marine Reserve. Now there's already some limitations on here, I think, is that right? Or they're purely commercial limitations that already exist here?
Yeah, there's no existing recreational marine conservation plans within that area, although the research has been picked up in forecast planning documents that may contain some sort of state-based marine planning in the future. So.
Okay, well here once again, we've got the blue areas where there's restrictions on commercial that don't apply to the recreational sector. The areas that are there marked as Marine National Park, what sort of impact are we talking on rec fishing there?
Well, again, it's outside of the shelf habitat and away from the major access point being there, Esperance, so there isn't a lot of recreational fishing that would occur out there. The areas that are shaded in blue, there certainly is recreational fishing out there, but like you said, it's only focused on some of those commercial activities in terms of meeting those conservation values. So recreational fishing is still largely compatible within those areas of the research that's picked up with the Commonwealth plan.
Okay, now the final couple of maps go through to Kangaroo Island into the Great Australian Bight, which is the part of the South Australian recreational groups other than yourself. So from here, between now and August 8, what will your organisation be doing in the consultation period?
Well, we'll be getting out to those regions along the south coast and speaking with recreational fishers, picking up on specific views and values within those marine reserve networks, making sure that we're now feeding that into the public consultation phase. Now, we have had initial consultation with your office and department on our general views in those areas, but it will be now about focusing more on the finer scale for us. RecFishWest plans on developing a submission that we hope to get out at least a month before the plan closes, so other recreational fishers can see what RecFishWest is saying as a peak body and build that into their thinking and process for putting in individual submissions. And I'd certainly encourage all regional recreational fishing clubs and groups to have a look at this and put in their own submission, but RecFishWest as the peak body will be putting in a detailed submission.
Okay, so finally then, where do you think we're at now for rec fishing compared to where people might have thought we were a few months ago?
Well, I think this draft plan certainly highlights that the federal government has indicated that recreational fishing can still be compatible with marine conservation. It's all about looking at this at a risk-based approach and making sure that the conservation values are being zoned within a framework or a network that picks up on those values. It's not a case of recreational fishing isn't compatible with marine conservation, and that's what we've been, I suppose, raising all the way along and hoping that would be picked up in this plan. Yeah,
well certainly we've heard you loud and clear on that. I'm glad that where we've got so far on the draft is at least in the right direction, and hopefully over the next 90 days or so we're able to get the fine-tuning right. And so for your participation, the participation of everyone who loves to fish, on finding a positive way that works for the environmental protection, but also lets people have a great time on the water. Thanks for your involvement.
Yeah, thanks, Minister.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, mate.